member wants to introduce themselves, and then Jack, you can introduce yourself. So Maddie or Rich, go ahead.
I'm Rich Orman. I'm the other co-chair of the SAB. I've been on the SAB a couple of years now, I guess, and co-chair since the last co-chair left. Um, and I guess that's about it.
Okay, can you all hear me? Cool.
Yes.
Okay, my headset mute and computer mute are off sync. I'm Maddie. I have been on SAB for about a year. I joined last year, and my background is as a sustainability manager at an engineering design firm, and also just have a background in sustainability through my undergraduate degree.
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. Nice to meet you, Rich, Melody, Leah, and I see Bonnie's on here as well. And we've got Rob. Yeah, a quick intro on my end. So new to Nederland about a year ago, and just joined the Sustainability Advisory Board. My undergrad was environmental chemistry, and then I got a graduate degree and was an MBA focused on sustainability and finance. Early career was all in the building space, high performance design and lead, and then I've really focused on finance for distributed infrastructure, so EV charging, especially home energy storage, a bunch of things in that vein over the last few years, mostly working as a consultant and most recently at a software startup. So
Welcome. Thank you. So Rob, we were just introducing ourselves. Jack is our newest board member. So if you just want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, Brad LaChance, been in Netherlands a couple of years, just over a couple of years now. Similar space, I work in innovation engineering for microgrids. So looking at new product designs, de-risking new products, things of that nature. Formerly worked at NREL, currently work at AES Clean Energy in Louisville.
awesome.
Great. And then Leah Haney is our sustainability coordinator. She is our official staff employee that kind of holds all the sustainability stuff for us. And then we've got Tanya Unger, who is a reporter for the paper, so comes to keep track of our meetings. And then Bonnie, welcome, is a community member that is passionate about this kind of stuff. So I will start off our first discussion item, which is we have come up with the title called the Natural Environment Delegates Subcommittee. This will be our new idea as we try to re-envision what rights of nature might look like, not called rights of nature and not anything like the specific resolution we had before, but really just a monitoring and reporting body that is similar to how the Guardians would have functioned, that will keep the community up to date, keep connection with some of the major water entities, and do all that. So Rab or Rich, do you have anything to add?
We had the ad hoc subcommittee meeting last week to discuss this, and it was sort of our consensus that this was something that could keep going with monitoring the natural environment in our area and the watershed and more, but also will take into consideration the concerns that the Board of Trustees raised when they repealed the rights of nature resolution and the appointment of the guardians.
I suppose I'd also just like to add that, in its new form, this delegation would not have any adopted authority within the town in terms of an adopted resolution by the Board of Trustees. It would purely be advisory. I think that is the most acceptable form of this delegation going forward, given the current climate, unintended. But I can't help but express my regret of that, what I consider as a downgrade.
Did you all see the recent email from Gary Wachter about this particular unrelated, semi-related issue?
This is with regards to the wrap storage.
No, for the water court, which is what this all came about, the rights of nature. I wondered if it would be helpful to give Jack kind of a summary of that, unless you're familiar, Jack, with why we were making a different subcommittee and downgrading, as Rab mentioned. Anyway.
That would be helpful from my end. I just got that email and hadn't checked it yet before I jumped on.
Okay, yeah, so in summary, basically, we adopted the rights of nature out of the suggestion of Gary Wachter with I think it's Save the World's Rivers Now, which ended up backfiring a bit on the town in that could put our water rights in jeopardy. There's currently some litigation underway, and it looks like they're moving forward with that. And so we're wanting to basically repeal that verbiage that's attached to that idea with Gary Wachter and Save the World's Rivers, so that we can protect our water rights and decide how we want to, quote, enforce basically the rights of nature. Did I miss anything? Anyone that's key here? Yeah, so basically not calling it the same. And Rab, when you say we're downgrading, are you wanting to maybe change what we've established in this past subcommittee a little bit, or just wanting to note that it has less teeth?
I just want to note the absence of teeth in this, and that it's purely an advisory body, which is not a direct replacement of what was.
Gotcha.
Correct.
I just
Go ahead, Rich.
I just would like to say that the subcommittee that we had, that was me and our former SAB member Alan were on as the guardians of the river, was also an advisory body only. We had no authority to do anything other than gather information and present it to the SAB or potentially the Board of Trustees. So the job of these delegates that we're proposing that the board consider is really going to be similar, except it will actually be expanded because it's not limited to just the health of the watershed. It's limited to the entirety of the natural environment of the town, which includes the watershed, obviously. The rights of nature that the town board had adopted and repealed went much farther than that, but the role of the SAB is essentially going to be the same.
Yes, and so in this way, we are not seeking, and it sounded like I only got a response from Nicole. I didn't get a response from Billy, but it sounded like we're okay to proceed, that we actually don't even need to have the BOT make any motion or vote on this in any way. Essentially, we're just establishing a subcommittee under SAB that takes on this responsibility of reporting and monitoring of the natural environment without, like Rab said, any resolution that kind of gives it teeth.
And I think I just want to add to that. Melody's absolutely correct. This is something that we can do as the SAB on our own. We've never gone to the Board of Trustees to ask their consent or approval to establish a subcommittee. Obviously, if the Board of Trustees disagrees with us doing this, which I don't think they will, I have no reason to think that whatsoever. I think they will agree with this. They obviously have the authority to modify anything that we decide to do because we are an advisory board underneath the Board of Trustees. But again, that is not something I expect to happen.
Just to clarify your message there, Melody, I think that you were trying to get feedback on the appetite of DOT for the formation of this advisory board. Did you get that feedback, and that is what you're commenting on, or maybe I misunderstood what you were saying?
Yes, so I got a very brief email back from Nicole Sterling that said, "That all sounds good, please proceed."
I would note I had a private conversation with the mayor, and he did not raise any objections when I spoke to him.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying, guys.
Is there a reference for the type of monitoring that that are we calling it the NED? The spectrum of monitoring that would be included in that. I don't want to. I'm trying to get up to speed here, and don't want to cover ground that's already been traversed.
Yeah, great question. So there is somewhat spelled out in the Guardian's resolution that was passed in, I think, 2023 and then repealed just last month or 2 months ago or whatever. In that resolution, it did specify things when it came to the watershed, because that rights of nature resolution was specific to the watershed. And so it was things like the health and welfare of the creek, including like, are there any stream or flow disruptions? What is the wildlife that are in the inhabitants of that area looking like, et cetera, including animals and vegetation. And so I don't think we have it set in stone now. We will continue to discuss that in this subcommittee once we figure out who we decide our delegates are. I think that's a good first topic for this subcommittee to decide. But part of it involved connecting with the state water department, the county water departments, seeing what their reports looked like, what new permits have been pulled, any changes to operations, et cetera, as well as any major event that might happen. So recently, the Caribou mine upstream from us in Caribou is seeking permits to ramp up their operations again. So that's been one thing that's kind of forefront to our citizens in particular.
Okay, that's helpful. I'll look up the repeal document to kind of better understand that. Thank you.
And I think something that's relevant in the context of Caribou mine operations is that there was a release about a year ago, Melody, maybe correct me.
I can't remember.
Yeah, of contaminated out of Caribou mine. So that included metals that are not great to things that are alive. I think that that was mostly cadmium, and something else, but yeah, just for yeah, if anybody else has any details off the top of their mind, but I can try to link a document.
Yeah, that might have even been a few years ago. That might have been
I think it was
2021 or
2020,
22.
2022. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also in the context of this repeal of rights of nature, the potential for a Nederland reservoir also sparked some concern. I think Leah mentioned that in her summary, but that's mostly what Gary Walker's most recent email was pertaining to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and primarily that was the topic of his water court filing.
There have been some recent emails from the public to the BOT about some environmental issues that seem like they would fall under the subcommittee. And I'm wondering if, I know we're still working out the details of what that all means, but wondering about maybe funneling some of that to the SAB to respond. What do you all think about that? One example is I think it was an asphalt or related material that was dumped at Chapita. I think Melody, you said it was a former SAB member who brought that up.
Yeah.
That seems like that would fall under this subcommittee pretty squarely.
I think that the subcommittee can look into these types of things if they want. However, I think when you're talking about something that is actually a town operation that town employees are doing and setting up, that the town should have the primary responsibility for reviewing and responding to those things. Any response to something like that could even have legal repercussions if there was litigation later on. And I don't think any of us on the SAB or anyone that's going to be on this subcommittee is going to want to be in the position of doing anything that could impact the town if the town is involved in some type of complaint for an environmental issue with a government agency or some kind of lawsuit or something like that. And I think that when the town itself is doing something, town employees need to be the one, or the board of trustees need to be the one that take responsibility for making any type of statement.
That makes sense.
I-
Yeah, thanks, Rich.
I agree with that, Rich. At the same time, I haven't heard this addressed by BOT, which was the direct request of the comment that was received. Or, BOT hasn't witnessed the town operations. And I do think that there is liability for exactly what you said here of legal action because of the context without saying anything more about it. I think it's maybe relevant for SAB to nudge either BOT or town ops on this topic.
I agree with that totally. My point really was that any response to someone bringing up an issue like that is really going to be considered, especially if it's from us or anyone affiliated with the town, the official position of the town of Nederland. And that should be really, frankly, someone that gets a paycheck that is going to be giving or the mayor that's going to be giving the official response of the town of Nederland. Not to say that we shouldn't provide our advice or input to the board regarding any of those issues.
Yeah, I think so for this body, I think the idea was to mirror in some ways the guardians body that was established and then repealed, because there is quite a lot of work to do to lead up to and prepare some sort of annual or semi-annual or however frequent it's going to be report on the health of things. And I'm not sure that having it be like a community response body is the best. I think it would be great, you know, when citizens want to attend those meetings and bring those things up, and then there can be maybe a conversation back and forth about like, okay, who can we talk to next? What are the kind of next steps to check into this concern without directly finding an answer? Because us as volunteers, we're not going to be able to say why Town Works decided that that was the place they were going to put their asphalt pile. And I don't think even you, Leah, as the sustainability coordinator, can necessarily get a speedy answer as to why Town Works decided that's what they wanted to do, and confirming whether or not there was some sort of you know, significant impact from that decision. So I'd be hesitant to have it be volunteers like Rich and Rab were saying. And I'd really like this delegates subcommittee. Their focus is on understanding what the natural environment looks like, you know, what its current state is, how healthy is it, things that could maybe be done to improve it, and anything that might come along that has had an impact on it. And really think about those things and focus on the natural environment, because the idea behind rights of nature is that the environment is an entity that needs to be represented somehow legally so that it has a legal voice. And so I think we can still accomplish some sort of voice for the environment in a way that's not necessarily a legal voice, but it is a voice that just says this is the state of health of the natural environment that surrounds Nederland, and our ecosystems.
I guess I'm curious about like in this iteration, what the audience and pathway for that voice is. Like, is it oriented towards the Sustainability Advisory Board and then the Board of Trustees, i.e. like
Yes.
town, it's pointed inwards towards the town rather than pointed outwards, which is kind of the difference between the response that I think Leah was talking about as falling under, is like, in this circumstance, taking something like the issue around RAP, like, our goal is not to you know, provide an answer on how the town is operating. Is to understand, like, okay, what are the impacts of putting RAP on, you know, a pervious gravel surface, what are the potential impacts on the water body, and then bring that to the Board of Trustees. Is that kind of the direction? Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool.
At least I don't know if Rab or Rich, you think differently.
I agree with that, Melody. I think that to Rich's point, we should limit the extent to which we discuss this RAP issue, because my undergraduate degree is in environmental engineering, and RAP being a hazmat material, I think that there are some liabilities in place here. So I think that at least within this public forum, it's probably best for us not to discuss more details. Perhaps within the subcommittee might be a more appropriate forum, but I do see, now that Rich has brought this comment up, significant pathway to liability for this.
At the same time, even though the audience is pointed internally, like you mentioned, Jack, I think this will be potentially publicized, and so we want to make sure the message that we are putting out as a town, even though it is mostly kept locally, just knowing that that could be repeated and potentially spun a certain way as well. And anyone else want to jump in on what that might look like? But I don't think that it's not necessarily public, outwardly projected as well, but not by us.
Yeah, so
Right.
it would be a report that was made to the Sustainability Advisory Board. The board, we would then discuss it, look at it, and we would say, does the BOT want to hear this report or have it at a meeting or whatever? And then the BOT could decide from there whether they want to do that.
And I think
Yeah,
that
I
we
would
discussed
also.
in our. Go
Go
ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I think we discussed in our subcommittee that uh, there might be a request to make a in-person presentation to the Board of Trustees, or maybe not. It would just sort of be something that the SAB would decide. And I think we also, or I might have just mentioned that the people on these subcommittees still do remain private citizens, and if they disagreed with the decision of the SAB whether or not to present information to the board, they would still have the ability to do that, just not in their capacity as a member of the SAB, but in their capacity as a private citizen. If I could just clarify one thing also that was mentioned regarding this issue of the asphalt. I think that the information that we have received is very limited information in the form of an email that had some descriptions in it and one or two photographs of this thing. And I think a lot of us have probably seen it with our own eyeballs driving down past the post office and such. But I don't think anyone on this committee or board has any real in-depth information as to what the contents of this thing are, what it might or might not put out to anywhere else in the environment. And I think that when the comment was made maybe about potential liability, it's sort of a theoretical possibility. And I don't think this board is really intending to make any statements about that other than there's a reason that we don't want to talk about it in any type of definitive sense.
I'd
Rich,
agree with that, Rich.
kind of expanding on
Um,
that, Melody, I had a question. You mentioned like this committee could potentially put together, or the subcommittee could put together some sort of report for the BOT. And I guess I would be wary of even stepping that far. I think it would depend on the issue at hand, but just like, does this committee have, or, does anybody, depending on what the issue is, maybe someone has credentials, but I guess we would have to be careful in how we present that information in terms of, nobody's like an engineer that's going to be stamping this report or this analysis. And I would just caution the committee not to develop reports that could be presented as such. Because I think that's where you get into the.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there would be no necessarily opinions, okay? There's no, this is how I see it, and this is what I think the river needs, and there's not going to be any of that. The idea behind the first one is it's really a compilation of already published information, just all in one place so that people can see it. So, it would say there's been X amount of mines that have continued filing for their discharge permits, and there have been X amount of, new constructions maybe is one thing we look at. How many acres of trees have maybe been cut down or something like that. It would be much more just reporting of facts and compiling that information that is relevant to our specific local area all in one place.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks for clarifying.
I do think this wrap issue is, so I just a couple different points, I guess. One more thing to be aware of, Jack, is that this is posted on these subcommittee meetings are posted on the internet on Netherlands town page. Probably doesn't get a lot of visibility, but access is wide. But on the wrap topic, it is a good little case study for us to work out how to approach the board on sensitive topics in the future. I don't think there's going to be something that this new delegation addresses that's less sensitive than this wrap issue. So I think it's a good, and to date we've received information of so far is that there's what a former board member called recycled asphalt pavement, or paving, and it. My understanding is it's millings from the recent resurfacing in town. My observation is that there's no underlayment underneath that, but I could be wrong because I didn't place the material or watch it get placed. And the concern is that there is the potential for soil contamination after precipitation, and that that those millings were to be used within the week was the response back. I haven't driven by there today. Does anybody know if this is actually still a pile there? Is one question. And then the second component of this is even if it's not in place, we should probably still make some, comment or address BOT about this going forward and future works, and how risk for either this type of situation or negative impacts to the environment as it may be relevant could be avoided. So does anybody know if that pile's sitting there today?
No, right now, but I will in a few minutes because I have to pick up my kid at the teen center.
But yeah, so I think the either SAB in its current form or this new subcommittee should in some form address BOT about this issue beyond the comment that was made that this will be used within the week, it's not a big deal, kind of shrugging it off was the kind of response I read from the reply that was made. But right. So I think that there's a place for the nature and environment delegation to further advise the BOT on this topic. And I guess what I'm looking for is maybe feedback on the best format to do that. Given the sensitivity and, using this as a case for other topics that will probably not be any less sensitive.
Would it be appropriate for the subcommittee to, I guess, submit a collective public comment on the issue and just inquire about the department's I guess, general best management practices? Do they have those written down? Is recycled asphalt pavement included in those best management practices? Are they following the industry standard? I guess maybe expressing concern and following up with questions about current policies, because maybe a policy or a procedure just needs to be revised and some education needs to be provided. Not that we would do that, but just asking the question.
Yeah, I think that's a good, my thought is that that's a good stance for this committee to take place, is to ask the question and raise the concerns rather than provide the advice that from like a stamped engineer type perspective. I guess bringing that a little bit farther along, in what format can we address BOT? Me being a relatively new member of SAB, I think that I'm less familiar with how we may informally or formally address BOT and get things on their agenda.
I think that there are a number of ways we can do that. One is, I believe that we can write, we can put it in a minute, whoever is the current secretary. I think that's Maddie, right? For the month, can put it in a minute, and we can have that put in the board's packet that there was a sort of a decision of the SAB to present this information. Someone could volunteer to write up something that the SAB would then have to decide that would be forwarded to the board, or any member of the SAB can make a comment to the board in a private capacity as well. So there's probably other ways to do it, but those are the three that come off on the top of my head.
I think it's appropriate for either SAB or the Nature and Environment Delegation to address this outside of private citizens approaching BOT in the next open comment that they have. If anybody, so I guess I would like to make a motion that we that either SAB or the Nature and Environment Delegation formally address BOT in one of those two capacities that Rich outlined there.
I think that maybe the way to go is to have someone make a motion for the SAB to create this NED board, NED subcommittee. And once we do that and it's established, then we can make another motion requesting that the people that are appointed, these delegates, look into this issue and make a decision as to whether or not to make a request for information or a report to the SAB and or the Board of Trustees.
I agree with that.
I motion that the Sustainable Advisory Board create this new Nature and Environment Delegation subcommittee.
Melody, a second.
I don't object to that, and I will vote for it. One of the things that I might suggest is that we clarify that this committee will examine, and if it deems appropriate, report to the SAB regarding any issue related to the natural environment in or affecting the town of Nederland.
Is it appropriate for us to have a formal scope for these subcommittees, Rich? And if so, can does SAB have to do that, or can this Nature and Environment Delegation do that?
You know, I've never been on the SAB when we've created a subcommittee, so I've just been on it when we've had them. I would imagine that we put something about what the subcommittee is supposed to do when we create it, but I could be wrong on that. I just don't know. This is where I'm hoping Melody's extensive history and knowledge come in and can assist us.
Yeah, sorry, having tech issues. So as far as I understand, but I could be wrong, that in our bylaws, it's a very simple, brief statement that as a SAB, we will create subcommittees as needed. So that to me means that either we can establish the scope now at creation, Or we could say that, you know, the first task of this subcommittee is to, one, establish their scope, and two, establish the scope of the annual report and the format and what that would look like. And we could pass that on to the subcommittee.
That makes
This
sense to
is
me.
this is why I miss Miranda already, but hopefully soon.
So
I
I
would
make
motion that we form. Oh, go ahead.
Maddie, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I motion that we form the NED subcommittee and task them with outlining their purpose and scope as their first task once formed.
I second that, which I believe is really an amendment to Rab's original motion. So I second the amendment.
Okay, so we're gonna vote on the motion with the amendment. If you agree with both the motion and the amendment, yes.
Melody, I don't know that there's anyone or not public, but we do probably need to ask if there's any public comment.
Oh, yes, there is. And I did mean to do that. So in the mix of things, I forgot. Thank you. Members of the public, that would be Bonnie. If you have anything you want to comment on what we've talked about so far, as far as establishing this delegate subcommittee, go ahead. If anyone is speaking, we can't hear you. All right. Hearing nothing from the public. As an advisory board, I'm just going to have us vote on the two things together. I'm not going to separate them out. So if you agree with the motion and the amendment, say yes. And if you don't, say no. And I will call the roll for that vote, starting with our trustee liaison, Ty.
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
Maddie.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
Rab.
Yes.
And myself as a yes. So that motion passes. Any further questions or things we need to appoint people to the board.
I will volunteer as a delegate to the NED.
I will also volunteer as a delegate for NED.
I'll join you too. I will volunteer as a delegate to NED.
So I make a motion that Melody, Jack, and Rab be appointed the delegates.
I second.
As the co-chair, I will ask for any public comment on that. Hearing none. Melody, do you want to call the vote or should I do it? Not hearing anything from Melody?
I would say you should do it. Yeah.
Okay. Melody.
Yes.
Aaron.
Yes.
Jack.
Yes.
Maddie.
Yes.
Rab.
Yes.
And I am a yes, so it passes unanimously.
Great. And then do you guys want to set a next meeting date for that subcommittee, or do you want to just have us do that through email?
Hey, Melody, I have a motion.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I move that the board adopt what Rab had said about asking the subcommittee to look into this asphalt pile as it deems appropriate and to make any recommendations or take any other action as it deems appropriate.
I'll second that.
Any discussion from the board? Any public comment?
I have a clarifying question. Are subcommittees of SAB required to report to SAB, which reports to BOT, or can a subcommittee directly report to BOT in these matters?
Generally, our subcommittees will go through the SAB. I don't think there's any type of legal requirement that they do that, but I think that it's probably a good idea for the whole of SAB to consider what goes to the Board of Trustees. Also, I would, note, everyone knows this, but any meetings of this body are going to be, under public meetings that have to be duly noticed and so forth. And obviously, any communications within the body are going to be public records.
Yes, so let's clarify, Rich, in your motion, I understood that you were giving the subcommittee in this specific instance of this issue and the comment that was written in that they can, without coming back to SAB, go forth with connecting with town about this issue.
Yes.
Yes, okay,
To the extent
perfect.
I didn't say that, I will amend my motion.
Okay.
All right. Any public comment on that? Hearing none. Any other comment from the board? And Melody, do you second my amendment to my previous motion?
Yes.
Okay, let's, Melody, yeah, what's your vote?
Yes.
Maddie? I saw Maddie's mute go on and off, but I didn't hear what she said. Maddie, was that a yes? All right, we'll move on. Aaron?
Yes.
Okay, Jack?
Yes.
And Rab?
Yes.
And Maddie? Well, I deem the motion passed. So I don't think we need to talk anything else on this issue, Melody. Should we move on to our next item?
Yeah, so myself, Jack, and Rab will connect via email and set a date for our next meeting. So good?
Works.
Okay.
And
So
like
yeah,
Melody,
Yeah.
please include me in that so I can post it on our website also.
yes, of course.
Thanks.
I assume that passed unanimously. WebEx crashed on me right as Rich asked for my vote.
It passed unanimously, and now we have your vote, yes vote too.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, so we can move on to the next thing on the agenda, and I don't have it in front of me, but I believe it's Leah. So go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Melody. The next item is Partners in Energy, which is an Excel middle person group. Provided the year-end dashboard summary of our data for renewable energy programs and I think notably what they deem DSM, which is the demand side management. So reducing the quantity of energy required for residential and commercial and municipal And so I don't think it's a great use of meeting time to comb through the data, but I did want to share it with all of you. We could go through it more in depth in the next meeting if there's a desire to do so. But Partners in Energy, known as PI, did ask if we had any questions or anything that they could provide in terms of pulling out specifics in any of this data or anything we'd like to know about that. And also, since this is based on the presentation they gave, I guess that was 6 months or so ago, if there have been any changes to our goals, and I believe that was discussed a bit while I was out on parental leave. So I'm circling back around to see if any decisions had been made about our energy goals as they were set, I think, before I was in this position. The last decision that the board made was to focus on the municipal energy gap. But yeah, wanted to hear from all of you if any of that had been discussed in my absence and anything in the data that you would like to have answered by Partners in Energy. And there's a link in the agenda. I don't know if you all have that. I can try and throw that in the chat if anyone needs it.
Yeah, I have a question in the data.
Yeah.
Consumption looks pretty flat across all years except for 2018, which was used as the baseline. I'm not sure if 2018 was a particularly mild winter or what the reason was for the difference and why 2018 was selected as the baseline. But it's underwhelming to have 2018 as the baseline. So I guess understanding reasons behind why 2018 might have been so much lower in terms of therm usage. But yeah, I guess I'll put it that way.
Okay, and I will ask them in our next meeting, which I believe is tomorrow. Anything else?
Yeah, Rab, to just a flavor that I'm seeing is they've got a much lower heating degree day, like I don't know, 30% lower or something like that without doing the math for 2018. So, and I think your there's some support for your mild winter hypothesis, but
Yeah, and I think understanding the reason why they chose 2018 as a baseline versus 2019 or 2017 or any other year would be good to understand. Yeah.
So I could be wrong about why 2018 is the baseline, but as far as I know, it's because that's when we signed the MOU with Excel and started partnering with them. And so that's when we had access to our data.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Do we know why 2019 is excluded?
I do not know that.
It does seem interesting that 2018 is the baseline. There's no 2019, and then obviously energy usage patterns changed slightly in 2020 with more folks being home. I mean, you can't necessarily see that, but just in general, I would expect to see that. But yeah, 2019 is missing.
Did we have a sustainability coordinator in 2019?
I can't remember when we hired, it would have been Garrett for the first time.
I wonder if there's a pause in collecting that data somehow, but I will find out. Anything else from anyone else or from the public?
The only thing I wanted to note was I was looking at numbers and I'm like, huh, we had less participants. I wasn't I wonder why that is. And so I looked and basically there was 4 people that dropped out of WindSource. And that was kind of the main loss that we had in renewable programs, and that really doesn't surprise me because that's the premium program they have. But on the plus side, we did get what I think it was 11 or 12 more residential subscribers to some sort of renewables program. Oh, it was the 5-year renewable connect contracts. That was the other loss we had. There was a handful, I think 5 renewable connect contracts that looks like they went away. And since Excel isn't offering anything else competitive for people, they probably didn't find something new. But so that was just the change in as far as participation in renewable programs.
This is perhaps a topic for another conversation, but in terms of participation, I know that we have tried a lot of different efforts to try to get renewable participation in town. And the numbers in 2023 are not great for recruitment. So I think it's relevant that we address that in upcoming topics. Not that we haven't been, but
No,
doesn't
yes,
seem
I
to be
agree.
working. Is the takeaway.
Yeah, it's pretty plateaued / decreased. And I think part of that, for those who weren't here at that time, is because our community solar partner came out pretty strong in the beginning and then had some technical difficulties. And so we didn't promote that, and we lost about 6 months of when we would have been promoting that and collecting subscribers. So we do have a new program now that hasn't been promoted very well yet, but we'll be picking that up again. And I agree, Rob, we should discuss strategy more perhaps in the next SAB meeting to have more time to discuss that. And I'm sorry, I have a frog in my throat.
Yes, I think the main thing is we were waiting for Leah to come back before we ramped that program up again. So, yay, we're all back together again.
Great. Anything else on the data that you'd like me to ask Hi in our next meeting? Otherwise, we will move on to the next item.
I think if there's a way for us to contextualize so going specifically to page 1, the chart on the left, we have heating and cooling degree days as well as kilowatt hour and therm usage. If there's any way for us to contextualize these two within the same graph, then that would be super duper. Just so that we're not comparing apples and oranges in terms of, for example, therm usage on relatively warm or relatively cold winters.
Makes sense. Thanks, Rob. Okay. Moving on to our next item, which is updates on our EV chargers. So our current level 2 charger, which was fairly recently moved to a different part of the visitor center parking lot, seems to have some connection issues. And Rab, thanks for letting me know that it wasn't even charging at all. I don't know if you or your wife have tried it since your email a couple days ago. We've let people know that it's down and we're working on it. ChargePoint doesn't know why it's not working and have kind of been putting me off for a few days. They promised me an update tomorrow or Monday. But basically we were planning to implement a pricing structure in order to collect revenue from that charger at 40 cents per kilowatt hour, as well as a fee if you park there for longer than you need to charge your vehicle. And when we pressed the button to make those changes happen, something happened where they, at least from what they told me, they don't have a good enough connection. I don't know if that's a cellular connection or otherwise. I'm not sure if that was vetted when the charger was moved. And I don't know if anyone who was here at that time has any insight on that. I think I'll have to go to our contractors and some staff members to find that out. But basically, that one is down for the count right now, and we're trying to get it back up next week. So instead of having free charging, we now have no charging there, unfortunately. Yeah, go ahead.
Leah, I just want to clarify, do we know for certain that there was a direct relationship to pushing the button to update a charging cost program and the let's call it disabling of the charger? I.e.,
We
is it a
don't.
software problem or is it potentially also a hardware problem?
Yeah, that's the tough part because we don't know. It's gone down before, obviously, without a change to the pricing structure. However, on the day that we were supposed to start charging, they did have connection issues. And then when we reset it, we had to manually reset by killing the circuit more than once and then resetting the SIM card. So I do think they could be related in maybe resetting the system totally, but we followed their instructions exactly. I feel that it may be worth noting. I mean, ChargePoint is a difficult company to work with, but they seem to have outsourced their engineering team at this point as well, and it's been more difficult than normal to resolve issues. So I think I might have to escalate that in some way, but yeah, so I'm not sure if they are related, but they certainly are correlated.
And does ChargePoint typically send technicians to site, or do they allow somebody like town operations folks to, work on equipment with tech support? What's that kind of situation?
Sure. They have not sent a technician from ChargePoint, at least in the year and a half that I've worked for town. Never that I know of. It's been up to our Excel partners and our contractor electrician who helped with the installation. And I left him a message a couple days ago to get some context around that too. So I think that would be a good thing to ask ChargePoint if they are able to do that, since we've done everything they've asked and it still hasn't resolved the issue. So, but I don't know if they even have anyone who's able to come up here from ChargePoint.
Yeah. So that's what I was kind of getting at. If there is, if it would be helpful to have somebody take a look at that, who's outside of just typical electrician, then I can also volunteer to be like, on the phone with ChargePoint and maybe troubleshoot some things. But let me know if that might be helpful.
Thank you. I think that would be helpful, and it will be a huge time suck. So, at least on the tech support side, but I will gladly take your assistance if you're up for it. Let me see if they do get back to me on Monday. So next week, Rob, I'll connect with you and see how we might be able to resolve the issue. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'm
Super.
assuming this means that our car is not being able to be charged either.
That's correct.
Uh,
I know.
and is there any news on the level 3 chargers we were talking about in the last year, really?
Yes, there is. Yep, that's the next item. So the new level 3, you may all remember that we needed some infrastructure upgrades that Excel has to do, because we have the EVSI contract with them. That is slated for, I believe it's the 9th of July. So pretty soon we're all meeting at the charging station location to discuss how to install that. So it's still planned for in August, up and running. It should be fully functional by August, and it actually has to be for our grant funding to go through. So we have about a month to make sure that happens. And it's moving forward as planned. Any questions about that? Yeah.
I might suggest that when that happens, we do a like a little cutting the ribbon type thing or something. Maybe have Billy come out, cut a ribbon to open up officially the level 3 charger, etc.
That's a great idea.
He would love that. I can already
I
bet he would love
It's
that.
think that's
it's a
true.
pretty big deal, right?
Yes.
Nederland being the peak-to-peak crossroads.
It is a big deal, and he is like so for that. Like I almost guarantee he'd be all. I can't speak for him personally, but I can almost guarantee he would be like super into that.
That charger can also almost equal the entire consumption of the private residences of Nederland when it's connected. So yeah, it's a big deal. I also, Leah, if I could come out on the 9th and be of any assistance, is that during the day, or is that I'd be happy to come out too.
Great. Yeah, it is during the day, I believe. Take a look here. It's at 10 a.m., so right in the middle of the workday.
Super fun.
I can forward
That
it.
doesn't look. I can be there at 10 a.m. But
Great.
yeah, let me know if there's any technical discussion, or if it would just be like a location type discussion about installation. But I might be able to help on a technical.
Okay, it's a pre-construction meeting, so I don't know how technical they're going to get. I will send you the invite, and if you would like to attend, I think it would be helpful either way. And I think we're going to get, I think we should discuss the technical aspects, especially based on what happened with the level 2. Since we moved it and it's not working now. So if you're able to, I will forward that to you, and thanks so much.
Yeah, I'll plan on it.
Okay, and then last item under EV chargers is the next round of Charge Ahead Colorado. Grant, it's not the one that's open currently, but the one that will be open this fall. We're currently planning to install the next charger at the library, and I'll be meeting with Tim Redder, who's on the Energy Subcommittee, to discuss that a little bit. He's working with the library on that, but we were sort of exploring what the best next location would be, and the reason the library has been chosen is most importantly that they have the match for the grant, which town does not currently have. So there's been discussion about potentially the BNF parking lot or a church or the community center, and so far the only organization who has offered to put in the match has been the library. So more on that as it progresses, but that's the plan for now. And if anyone has any other ideas about a better location, now would be a great time to discuss that.
Lee, is that a level 3 charger that we're talking about? Or
It
level
is,
2?
yes, thanks.
Okay.
Level 3.
I think the library, having used level 3 chargers on road trips and stuff, I can say I think the library is a pretty good location, because what you want is somewhere that you can like walk to and get a drink or a snack or something like that. And both of the convenience stores in town are easily within walking distance of that location. So someone, on a long drive would be able to go use a bathroom. Well, they could do that in the library too. But get a cold drink, hot cup of coffee, etc. So I think that's a great location.
And would you say the community center, sorry, real quick, would the community center not be as convenient, since you can walk, of course, but it's not quite the same accessibility in my opinion?
I think that having, used I've used chargers in small little towns in the middle of nowhere, and it's really helpful to have a place where you can buy stuff. Even, at Gasomat or the Sinclair station are more than sufficient for what you need when you're on a road trip, right? So being within close walking distance, not having to go up and down a hill like you would to the community center. I think that the library is the perfect spot if we had to pick a spot in town.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I'd agree with all of
Right.
that. I'd also highlight just quality lighting. If it's a well lit space at night, that can be a pretty big benefit as well. I can't remember the existing lighting situation of the library the last time I went through, but similarly speaking to long road trips and level 3 late at night, that's really helpful.
I would agree that it is a pretty ideal location from a user perspective. I also did want to approach the topic that it's on the opposite side of North Beaver Creek from where I expect the library gets its electrical service from. I can share my screen if that's relevant, but I expect that the electrical service is coming into the library from the north underground, and it would be infeasible to cross the creek in order to supply, from the library itself. So I think there is also a pole mount service on the south side of the parking lot. So I don't know if there's necessarily a connection between the space that's being hosted and the electrical service, but just want to point that out that there may be some technical with regard to siting at the community library.
Thanks, Rob. Yep. I was told, not by the library, but people on the board who are helping to manage this project, that they would need to build a transformer and probably some storage closer to the parking lot. And just so you know, the library only owns that small strip on the east side of the parking lot. And the rest is owned by the church. So there is a pretty limited spot that we can use. But they do plan to put in more chargers, so they mentioned wanting to upgrade all of the electrical over there for future chargers. But we will need to look into that more as well.
Yeah, it does look like that there might be an infrastructure issue. And when you say storage, do you mean physical space storage or energy storage?
I believe they meant energy storage.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Anything else on the topic of EV chargers? Okay. Melody, do I ask for public comment on all items or just on action items and motions?
We can ask for public comment on everything.
Oh,
I would
actually,
say ask for public comment right now on EV stuff.
okay, it looks like Bonnie has dropped off, so I'm not sure we have any more public, but if there are any public comments, please chime in.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay, thanks. All right, moving on to the plastic bag and styrofoam ban. I had originally included an action item to move that back. I don't think that's necessary anymore, based on some conversations with Macy. While I was on leave, Miranda and the attorney had been working on the final draft of the ordinance banning plastic bags and styrofoam takeout containers, and also implementing a 10-cent paper bag fee. And this is following Colorado State. The the Colorado state ban, which is up to small municipalities to enforce as they see fit. So we're basically following that with specifics for our small businesses, which are typically exempt under state law. And the reason I was going to push this back is because our attorney has actually not signed off on the ordinance, and I'm told that we commonly do that anyway and move forward with enforcing it. I'm curious if any of you have any historical knowledge on that, Melody specifically, or Rich, because I personally would prefer to have the ordinance posted and finalized before we start telling businesses that this is an enforceable thing, and we are collecting a fee for this program as well. So we can move forward with, July 1st is when it should be in effect. It should be posted within a couple days after that, the final stamped by a lawyer version. But I would like to have that publicly available before really moving forward with that. On that note too, Melody, I know you mentioned how SAB might be able to help with that. The Zero Waste Subcommittee is currently looking at the businesses that would need to be spoken to individually and making it more of a personable approach, as opposed to just sending out an email or flyers, but actually talking to the business owners. So that's where we are now. We may enlist some help from the SAB board later if it seems like there's some resistance to that or opposition that needs to be addressed, but that's the plan right now.
Great. My initial thoughts, and I'm happy to be convinced otherwise. My initial thoughts is that we did have the town meeting where the BOT voted on and approved this, right? So it is public and it's out there, and I understand we won't have the official coded version, but I think that's what they meant when this is typical that we do proceed that way. And I would say definitely for the first few months, maybe 3 to 6 months, we should be real lax about enforcement and just more educating them. So I think on the books, we need to say, yes, we can enforce this in case there is some sort of severe violation we need to get into. But then as staff, you guys can kind of work with an understanding manner in businesses as far as enforcing this and making sure people are understanding what they're supposed to do, how to comply, and that they're able to comply before we start being heavy-handed on enforcement.
I would agree with that. I think it seems like it's probably okay to announce it, even without the signed ordinance, and then have some education up front, and then kind of more of that stricter enforcement 3 to 6 months later.
There is language in the ordinance mentioning, I believe it's a small fine. So maybe that's a 2025 situation, and we'll just take the next 6 months to inform people. And styrofoam will no longer be available for sale in the state of Colorado, so I think that will help just kind of phase things out a bit naturally over the next 6 months. And then as other municipalities are adopting the same ban, which is the case now, I think that will also make it easier to have more widespread acceptance.
Yeah, just a kind of quick fun note. I don't know if anybody else buys cup of ramen, but I have a teenager, so I have them. And they are no longer styrofoam. They've switched to a paper cup. So it seems like some of these suppliers are, switching over, and the stores are getting the memo.
A lot of stores are actually taking back and recycling their packaging of the products that they sell. My wife has this insane recycle situation going on in our back hallway that I can't say I still completely understand, but um, almost all the packaging that we have now is recyclable. So that's great. It's great. We have to mail it to them, but they provide a label and it's good. We
Are you
try.
talking about TerraCycle?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Related,
I wouldn't have been able to say that unless you said it first. You had to like jog my memory to like remember that. But yes, I'm still like it's been months and I'm still like, where does this one go? But yeah, I think it's really cool that they're starting to do that and starting to kind of take the hint.
somewhat related to that, I was impressed to see that the owners of Decent Bagel and Sweet Sue's implemented the new coffee cup recycling program. I can't remember the name of it, but I thought that was a really good step for just an independent business to take, and maybe other businesses can catch on, and then they can work together to have those coffee cups returned. I can't, Leo, you might know the name of the program.
Yeah, I have a picture of it, but I can't remember the
Like
name
it's
of
like
the
cup
of
to go
the-
or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those reusables. Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, well, I invite and encourage everyone to speak to their local friendly business owners about the upcoming ban. There are a few specific plastic bag and styrofoam users that you might be aware of, so feel free to give them a little nudge.
I have mentioned something to my BNF cashiers and my Quick Mart cashiers.
You're awesome. All right, anything else on the ban before I move on? Great. Well, the last item is my my update and subcommittee updates, but I think we've actually covered all of that in the discussion items. So any other business to discuss?
Can I make a request for an upcoming meeting?
Of course.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about redoing or just looking at the sustainability scorecard again, and I'm wondering with Jack on board and maybe potentially with some of my experience, if we can look at that again and see if there's anything that needs to be updated. I haven't looked at it in quite some time, but it seems like maybe we have some of the people power to do that if folks are interested.
Does
Do we
somebody
want
else
to?
remember, I thought we already created a subcommittee to work on this, and maybe it was just my fault for not organizing a meeting of those people.
I think we talked about it. I don't know if we made a formal motion and therefore didn't follow up with a meeting.
It'll be in those minutes to get done.
Yes.
Which I'm not upset about at all. I just because I vaguely remember, and maybe it was a meeting when you weren't here, Maddie. I vaguely remember myself and Rab being appointed to it.
It might be because I wasn't here in April. So that very well could be because I was trying to do the May minutes before April. Let me follow up then, and I can send an email separately.
And my understanding that that will be worked on offline, and then we'll come back to that in a SAB meeting to review potential changes to the scorecard.
Yes. I think there was two things to work on. There was reviewing the scorecard as far as it refers to natural gas, and then just kind of a general review. And then also figuring out if there is a way to make some sort of slimmed down version of it for the BOT to use for decision making.
Mhm.
But again, I'm just going off memory, not official record.
I'll follow up with you, Melody, and then we can come back to this committee.
Okay.
I did want to backtrack a little bit on something of the other level 3 charger that was potentially at the library. Just cruising town with Street View, it looks like the mining museum is a really great place from both a location and electrical infrastructure perspective. A lot better actually than the library. Would probably require a lot less energy storage. Do we know if the mining museum is a town-owned property and if they would be open to hosting that charger?
I think it's the county owns it.
Yeah, it's the county Parks and Open Space Division owns and runs it.
And keep in
Although
mind,
keep in
mind too.
sorry, Aaron.
It's okay. A lot of rangers park there all the time. Like that's like one of their staging grounds. Is that place? So the one thing that worries me about that is like, would that be blocked by the rangers needing to use that as a staging ground? If you know, per se, the county approves that.
When you say rangers, do you mean like forest rangers or what? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Sorry. There are two different rangers: ranger police officers, which are volunteers, but then there are county rangers, and the county rangers station there if they're gonna go do something bigger, and they all need to find a place to meet. They do stage there a lot.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to stand in the way of the rangers, but yeah, I guess I would just reiterate that it's a great place and for an EV charger, and perhaps there's other places for rangers to stage. But I think it's worth looking into. It's more central to town, and it is also near high voltage. So you'd be able to directly run a transformer off of the high voltage there.
Which I would imagine has a meaningful impact on cost, especially if we're talking about adding less energy storage.
Like half.
Yeah. which is worth, outlining in very vague numbers, at least.
Right. I think we're talking about 5 to 6 digit type cost difference in location.
Great, thanks. And the county may also have more funding to put towards that. We are part of a regional electrification plan. So it sort of counts, all to the same Boulder County number of chargers. So I think that's a great suggestion.
I did have one thing that maybe just Leah, you can follow up with town hall staff on. So I got the water report in the mail like I do every year. And every other year it's been on normal paper and therefore fully recyclable. And the one I got this time is I'm not sure that the paper is recyclable. It's got that coating on it that makes it nice and shiny. And so I'm just wondering if we can circle back around to like making sure that we are sourcing recyclable promotional materials that we send out.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button. Does that come from Public Works?
I don't know. It looks like maybe they contracted with another service to print and send it maybe, and that's why it is what it is.
Okay.
But I know like when you go to oh gosh, what's the big one? I'm blanking on the name. But when you go to like those online print services and you print and you can add mailing for, 50 cents a thing, and they sticker it and mail it all for you. There are ways to select the non-shiny paper. You just have to go in there and do it yourself.
Okay, I'll look into that. Thanks, Melody.
Yep.
Does the town have a sustainable purchasing policy and or like contract language for vendors? I wonder
I
if that's
don't
something we can
believe
add
so.
in
Yeah,
the
I don't
future.
believe
Like
so.
we could
Sorry.
help develop those.
Yeah, that's something that I talked about with Miranda a few times. And I felt like there was, but she couldn't find any record of it, which doesn't surprise me. And then we also kind of had a larger discussion about what's the best way and how is our role as far as the sustainability board in relation to staff versus the BOT, and is it something where basically we decided we want to facilitate that conversation less of like, this is a policy we're going to make you guys follow, and more of a, hey, here's another option, let's do this instead scenario. But I'm happy to revisit that.
Yeah, it could be something interesting to revisit. Personally, we've contracted with Boulder County for a few things, and they have a really good sustainable procurement policy. Of course, they're a bigger entity, but it is kind of interesting just some of the things that they put in their terms and conditions that pass through to vendors. I think it would probably be different for a vendor you're just purchasing from one time, but it could be something to explore later on. Just wanted to throw it out as an idea.
Yeah, and it might be something where we have a policy is related to like town hall and certain specific things, but it's not an all-encompassing policy. So I don't know even who at this point to go for record on that. Maybe Macy.
Yeah, I'll start with her. If Miranda couldn't find it, I mean, Miranda was a really good searcher, but I'll see if there's anything
If
we can dig up. And if not, then we could just write something new, I'm sure.
It would have been passed when Alicia Rice was our town administrator, because it was at that point that they stopped buying plastic water bottles for the BOT meetings and started filling the jugs and the glasses.
Okay.
So there was something that they passed. I'm just not sure the specifics of it.
Do you happen to know what year that was?
Wild guess is 2017, 2016. I'll see if I can find anything too in our files. Any other items? Hearing nothing, I will move to adjourn the meeting at 8:22 p.m.
Thanks all. Nice to meet you, Jack. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Thank
Bye,
y'all.
everyone.
Thank you.